No, I'll do that.
Oh, there you go. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to speak to you all today. My name is Tasneem Filaih. I'm the school manager here in the School of Classics. I'm here with my colleagues and co-hosts, Dr. Bridget Martin and Dr. Christopher Farrell. We'd just like to express our thanks to Agile, Josephine, Jeremy, Emer, Agla, and Michael. Thank you so much for inviting us to this wonderful event. We're going to be introducing you today to our award-winning outreach project, Access Classics, which was created in 2019 to formalize outreach of UCD School of Classics. The aim of Access Classics is to support second-level schools which currently offer classics to their students and to create opportunities for schools which do not offer classics. Access Classics began very modestly and has gone from strength to strength, recently securing a UCD Values and Action Award. A special thank you to our head of school, Dr. Martin Brady, for nominating us for this wonderful prize. We hope to inspire and to provide those among you who are thinking about starting a project, outreach or otherwise, the tools to begin on a very minimal budget. I'll begin by discussing how we began and gradually learned to adopt tools for networking, branding, getting a website up and running, and what we learned along the way. Idea generation happens in the oddest of places. With Access Classics, it was by drafting responses to our school's quality review that prompted me to approach our head of school at the time, Dr. Alexander Thane, with a very basic outreach concept and asked if I could approach academics within the school about any possible interests. He gave me the go-ahead, which we will always be grateful for, and a team was assembled. I think it's important to stress that neither of us had a background in industry or project management of any kind, so it's very much learning as we went along. We began by just reaching out to people to see if there were similar projects in the university and source advice on how viable a project like this would be. We met with Access and Lifelong Learning's Anya Murphy, who shared the success of computer science Spark Summer School based here on campus. We also talked to Anthony Cronin of Math Sparks. These conversations gave us the grounding and the ability to develop our own project, which we cannot thank them enough for. We started by drafting a mission statement on what the main concept would be. As you can see, our steps were gradual and small, but we were getting somewhere. We started reaching out to secondary schools who we had already established relationships with to pilot our project, and so began Access Classics. We had no initial funding. The time we spent on the project was voluntary in addition to our own work commitments. Our head of school, Dr. Thane, was happy to provide initial funding for costs for promotion materials, leaflets, travel expenses. For promotion as well, we aimed to source platforms we could use that were for free. So social media, generating posters on platforms such as Canva, and using the school website with all the quirks associated with the CMS platform. Branding we knew was important to create an image for promotion on our website, social media, and other resources. I started to approach branding companies, but as soon as they heard our budget, some of them wouldn't respond. Those that did respond met us with quotes exceeding €6,000 for a logo and a website banner alone. I mention these prices here just so you can get an idea, as we had absolutely no idea what to expect. It felt like a miracle when we sourced a company. Don't worry, I'll link everything below, who agreed to create a logo for just €179. The concept design of the logo goes straight to the classicists, Bridget and Chris, intertwining the subject of classics and Ireland choosing Hibernia. Something we did not know beforehand, and we definitely would have approached differently, would be the importance of generating images for promotion and the role GDPR plays. We knew we needed pictures to promote the work we were doing on these platforms. The pictures we took initially focused on not identifying the subjects. So for example, it would be the picture of the back of a student's head with the camera focused on Chris or Bridget. We knew enough about data protection wise to follow these procedures, but photos that we really wanted to use, we couldn't due to faces appearing. We didn't know that if we wanted a pictures that included faces, we would need signatures from individuals over the age of 18 and signatures from those under the age of 18's parents. One thing we wish we did beforehand is obtain signatures. So emailing or posting forms ahead of scheduled visits for signing and collecting them from the teacher before a session would address this issue, married with identifying those who may not have a signature before taking any pictures. For the website, our initial hope was to have a place to allow resources that would be developed by Access Classics for schools around the country to download and peruse. When we asked if we could add additional pages to the website on the CMS platform to create more interactive resources, I'm sure most of you know the answer. University school websites all follow the same formula, so there's not much room to negotiate additional pages. For a placehold, we repurposed one of the pages currently on the website. It was far from ideal. Although you could upload PDFs, podcasts, videos, and other resources, they would all be sandwiched in on the one page, which you can see in front of you here. We did approach a UCD recommended website developer, but the cost of setting up the website at €3,000 with an additional monthly fee of $220 was just something we couldn't afford. The website publisher WordPress, though, proved to be ideal. It allowed plenty of design features to choose from and allowed for clarity and form for each resource, displaying them beautifully and professionally for the fee of €99 annually, which was very minimum to secure, And to secure an irish.ie domain, we only had to pay an additional €8. I've included a list of useful links here for branding, website, logo, everything you may need to get started. So how successful was our pilot and where did we go from here? I'll pass you on to Bridget.
Thanks a million, Tasneem. So for our pilot, this we ran in March 2019, and we conducted it in 3 different schools in Dublin. And as Tasneem said, we very much reached out to teachers we already knew. So we called upon our friends, and 3 of them very kindly agreed to give us access to their classes. And it worked out very well for us in that these 3 teachers just happened to teach in what was a very good cross-section of available schools to us. So we went first of all to St. Aidan's in Tallaght, which is a Desh school that does not currently offer classics to its students. We went to Holy Faith in Clontarf, which is a non-fee paying school that does offer classics, but not the classical languages, Greek and Latin. And finally, we went to Blackrock College, which is fee paying and has a very strong tradition of Latin probably more so than classics. And this gave us access to all of these different cohorts of students and really gave us the opportunity to try out lots of different things to see what did and didn't work. And it became very clear very quickly that what worked were very hands-on things. So for example, when we brought artifacts from our museums, when we played little games with them around the Greek alphabet, for example. And the main thing that emerged was that the appetite was there, that we could actually add value to what was happening, that we weren't just taking up half an hour of their time to fill a gap, that the teachers and the students, to a person, they really, really responded to it. And that really gave us the confidence to see that we could actually reach these different schools and it was something we could give to them. So we came away from our pilot and created our brochure, and we approached the Department of Education and Skills. And this was one of the strokes of luck, I think, in our process, in that it landed on the desk of one of our former classic students here in UCD, who very much pushed for us to be backed by the department. It's not something they generally do, but they sent out our brochure to all 2nd level schools in Ireland. And we immediately got this really good response from people asking for sessions with us. But this did immediately bring up an issue that we had been aware of, but that I don't think we'd given it, the concentration it needed. And the issue was we were getting responses from Mayo, from Tipperary, from Cork, from people saying, this is brilliant, you know, please come and talk to my students. So this was a big problem for us. How were we going to square this circle? How were we going to justify going to Mayo for a half-an-hour talk with students? And it was something we had not fully resolved when the lockdown came. And this in itself, it provided us with a solution to this, in that we moved all of our activities online and we started conducting our sessions with the schools through Zoom or Microsoft Teams or various different platforms. But what is interesting is that the schools that are reaching out to us now, they're still within Dublin. So the people we are reaching, even though we're online, are still Dublin. And they're also nearly all schools that already have classics. And what we really want to do is get to the schools that don't, to spread what it is, to make people aware of it. So there are a few things that we have been doing, and we very much used the pandemic to kind of develop a few different things to look at these two issues. And the first is what Tasneem showed us there with our website. So we figured if we created a website that had resources, then those schools we couldn't get to, or those schools who didn't have half an hour for us to come and talk to our students, that we could still offer them something. We could offer them resources that teachers could access, that students could access. So on our website currently, we have a few different types of resources. So we have quite an extensive transition year unit, which I will talk about separately in just 1 minute. And we are continuously developing resources for the junior and senior cycle for both the classical studies and the language offerings of this. And both of these have new curricula that are coming on stream currently. So we really can be very much part of that. And we are, you know, speaking quite closely to teachers, especially the Classical Association of Ireland teachers, to see what we can add. So we're not doubling up resources, we're actually working with them to produce something new, to fill those gaps that they are finding difficult themselves to fill. And part of this is a suite of podcasts and videos that we're currently creating that touch on different themes and issues in the junior and senior cycle, but also, you know, things that are a bit peripheral that give the students that broader understanding of classics and maybe kind of whet their appetite for coming to us in UCD or any other, you know, third level, just to develop their understanding a little. So again, giving them something that they may not be getting in the classroom. And we also, on our homepage, we kind of have posts that we update just to make people aware of what's happening in the world of classics. So maybe not just specifically us, but also other different bodies that might be promoting it. And just a bit of a spotlight on one of our resources. So this is a product of the pandemic. So the Classical Studies Transition Year Unit. So this is our Trojan horse for getting to those schools that do not have classical studies. So we wrote an extensive manual for teachers. So a teacher who has never encountered classical studies before, they can read this and they can teach it and they can pretend they have all this knowledge, because they will essentially after this. So they have the manual, they have the PowerPoint that goes with it. And we gave this to the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, and they signed off on it, and it will be up on their website when they redo their special page for the transition year units. It's available on our website, and we contacted all schools about it. So we have had a really positive response to it, which is fantastic, and we're really hoping to build on that. So it's aimed, first of all, at those students who have never come across classical studies, and that's what section 1 of the unit is about. So what is classical studies? So more than anything else, teaching people it's not classical music. So bringing them through the ideas of literature and art, mythology, all of these different things. And then sections 2, 3, and 4, they're again looking at quite peripheral aspects of classics that they don't get in the classroom. And this is a prerequisite of a transition year unit. It cannot be something they've already done. So there's very much a connecting thread throughout the unit to ask students to consider their own place in the world, to see where they came from, and to question things from the classical world that they may take for granted, and just to get that conversation going about how it's still echoing today, and is this a good or a more questionable thing. So this is one of our main resources at the minute. And I will just end my part here on a quick word about relationships and partnerships. And we were very sure from the very beginning, we did not want to be a discrete entity out there doing our own thing. We very much wanted to be part of a much wider classics and educational community. So we reached out to essentially everyone. And we got a really positive response from the Classical Association of Ireland, Classical Association of Ireland Teachers. In the UK, we connected with Advocating Classics Education and Classics for All. Closer to home, College of Arts and Humanities, National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. But just to say, for every logo we have here, there are 10 we don't have because nobody responded to our email. So to get these connections was a Herculean task of just emailing constantly. And if one person didn't reply, you email somebody else, and you kept it going like that. And we really want to make it international as well. So we have been reaching out to embassies, and the Greek embassies have been really responsive. Italian embassies, not at all. They don't want anything to do with it, but we're just going to email somebody else in the embassy. So on that point of international relations, I'm going to hand you over to Chris now, who will talk a little bit more about our future.
Thank you very much. And on this slide, you can actually see an example of an artifact that we might use in some of our sessions. This is a silver coin from ancient Rome that has the god Janus with two faces, so looking to the past and to the future simultaneously. And we get the name of the month January from this. But of course, in terms of looking towards what our future ambitions are, it is very much about thinking about where we've had successes, what lessons we've learned from our trials and tribulations, or sending out emails into the abyss and sometimes never hearing back. And I think, you know, to build on what Bridget was just saying, we're very keen on finding ways of making links internationally and maintaining those, in particular because when we're talking about classics, we're often talking about Greek and Roman civilization, the ancient Mediterranean, and then how those civilizations interacted with cultures from not only Europe, but also Africa and sort of the Middle East and Central Asia, and further afield through trade and the diffusion of ideas. And so we've been working with embassies on Cyprus and Greece, and through those connections, they've also tried to help us connect with embassies in Italy. And for instance, we've most recently been talking about the possibility of having a kind of pen pal program in which students studying English in Greece might be interacting with students studying classics in Ireland, and understanding that there is a connection between these cultures, and that by learning this, students will have other opportunities to interact with students throughout the European Union and abroad more as well. And to Bridget's point about the pandemic, one thing that we really had a problem with, whether it was anywhere outside of Dublin or even sometimes inside of Dublin, and trying to get to a school for that particular slot, was really what opened our eyes was the opportunity to be able to interact with students remotely via Zoom, or through the creation of a prepared video and then a live interactive session. And that's something that we're working on, and we're hoping will allow us to have an all-island engagement, both within the Republic and also in schools and organizations like CANI, the Classical Association of Northern Ireland, not just so that we can kind of bring the subject and our spin, our UCD particular brand of classics to them, but also so that they're aware of opportunities that they could come to us and study in the future, and perhaps become teachers and then bring our particular blend of classics internationally as well. So virtual visits is really a big takeaway point, I think, that we're going to have moving forward, and will allow us to sort of engage with these schools in places like Mayo, build up our relationships and trust with teachers and students over time, and then allow us, I think, strategically to plan visits so that we can consolidate those relationships and make the most of them when we're able to do that. Another sort of big thing that we've been piloting during the pandemic period, and is sort of a brainchild, not just of the Access Classics team, but also of the current head of the school, Dr. Martin Brady, who worked very closely with Bridget in putting together the course overview, is a module GRC 30340 Access Classics. And that's a pilot program that's running this year. It's been made possible in part because of successful applications to the teaching and learning funding. And we have 3 really great students taking it for credit this year, and also a 4th who is auditing the class. And together they're working with us on essentially what we would think of almost as a kind of internship of teaching classics of a practical skill in the humanities, and how they can lesson plan, how they can create resources that allow for both public engagement and outreach, how they can communicate what our discipline is and what its values are to the outside world, whether those are parents of prospective students or the students themselves. And we're getting really interesting feedback from them that I think will help us also continue the outreach efforts in the future, not least because these are students who are in their third or in some cases fourth year of study. And also these are students who are younger than us and hipper than us and have access to cultural references and things that help us stay relevant in terms of interacting with students and being aware of what the social media trends are and things like that. So it's been really a beneficial and enjoyable experience to kind of run that module and again, gain that experience sort of for how we might function remotely in the future. And lastly, the thing I want to talk about is, as Bridget said, through the website, we're really looking for ways to take traditional outreach and make it longer standing or more permanent. So for example, creating resources that go with the new curriculum, but making those as videos, which is a skill that we've all been acquiring in lockdown in terms of delivering content to our students, creating handouts and sort of textbook type materials on the model of the transition year unit, which Bridget really took the guiding principle on and sort of has done a tremendous amount of really good work with and has gotten us recognition outside of the institution. And I think, and then building on that and taking existing institutions that the school offers. So for instance, when I arrived 3 years ago, the school was regularly sharing with other universities in Ireland an annual leaving certificate lecture day that we alternate with Trinity. And this year, because we can't deliver that in person, a number of colleagues have volunteered to make videos. And those, of course, will be content that will remain on the website indefinitely. And students in the future will be able to access those. Teachers will be able to access those. And as part of that, we're hoping to not just sort of get classics sort of on a firmer ground in schools where it also exists, but also to work with teachers and teacher training through the UCD School of Continuing Education or education in general, and work on ways for workshops for teachers outside of term time so that they can brush up on the new curriculum and have kind of an opportunity for continuing education. And for our own students to see that there is a pathway and that there is a demand for teaching classics in schools. And this is something that they can do, whether they're taking something like the Access Classics module or not. So looking for opportunities to work with teachers and students as partners, creating content, not just for general consumption, but also with the explicit purpose of helping to train another generation of teachers and who will spread this to schools that can't currently offer it. And I'm just going to turn you back over to Tasneem, who's just going to sort of summarize some of the main points and takeaways from our what we've learned so far.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you again to Agile for giving us the opportunity to speak today and to share with you how our project slowly unfolded, how it was received and where we're planning to go. A project like this has been very enriching in so many ways. Feedback from schools range from one secondary school student saying how enjoyable Access Classics was as they got to see artifacts in real life instead of in books. During the pandemic, another secondary school student stated, it was hard to focus, but when we did the class online with Access Classics, it was very helpful. For us each individually, we've learned and gained a lot from this project, instantly becoming website developers, podcast producers, and photographers. With this project, we're still learning, growing and developing, and are very excited to see what the future has in store. So I think we'll head back to you, Jeremy, now.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Tasneem. And everyone's been so good at sticking to their time, so thank you for that too. I haven't had to give anyone a 5-minute warning or 2-minute warning yet, so that's great. I'll leave the chat open for questions there. You're getting some comments already in relation to the Inspire